Okay, next, number 8.
Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Item number 8 is application REZ 19104 for the property located at 17520 Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property from Plan Development Alternative, PDA, which is under file Z00-03, to Plan Development, PD.
Danny Collins with your Planning Commission staff. I've been sworn in. Our next case is in the new Tampa Planning District, and more specifically, it's in the Richmond Place neighborhood. Subject site is located within proximity to transit. There's a transit stop that's adjacent to the subject site that connects to downtown and the Tampa International Airport. The subject site is within a level E evacuation zone. This is an aerial of the subject site. The subject site shown here, outlined in purple. It's at the intersection of Highwood Preserve Parkway and Bruce B. Downs. This is the AMC movie theater for reference. You'll see some single-family residential just to the north and northeast of the subject site, and you'll also see some commercial at that intersection. This is the adopted future land use map. This is in the suburban mixed use 6 future land use category. You'll see to the north and to the west is that SMU 6. Just on the south side, you'll see CC 35, which is the red shown on the map, and then you'll see this teal color just further southeast, and also that goes in and out just to the north and west of the subject site. That is environmentally sensitive land. The Planning Commission staff reviewed the request and found the request to be consistent with several comprehensive plan policies relating to commercial development within mixed-use corridors. The building is adjacent to Highwood Preserve Parkway. A pedestrian connection is provided for the building entrances from Bruce B. Downs Boulevard and the nearby Hart Transit stop. In addition, the request is consistent with the commercial character of this area and this intersection. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff found the request consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you.
Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property located at 17520 Bruce B. Downs Boulevard from PDA file Z00-03 to PD to allow for the redevelopment of the property for shoppers, goods, and retail sales. The property is currently occupied with a vacant structure. The previous use was a restaurant, and the site will be redeveloped with the use as retail sales and shoppers, goods for a proposed grocery store. The site is located in the new Tampa Commercial Overlay District. Let me put the site plan up. The project proposes a building with a total area of 19,160 square feet. The setbacks are proposed as north 10 feet, south 50 feet, east 20 feet, and the west 10 feet. The maximum building height is proposed at 24 feet 8 inches to the top of the parapet. Based on the proposed square footage, a total of 77 parking spaces are required, and a total of 106 parking spaces are being provided. Let me put the aerial map on. The property has vehicular access off of Preserve Walk Lane. There is no direct vehicular access from Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. The property is surrounded by retail and restaurant uses to the north across Highwoods Preserve Parkway, restaurant and retail uses to the south and east across Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, and a theater use to the west across Preserve Walk Lane. The site and the surrounding parcels are all part of an overall PDA, and again, that file is Z00-03. There are no historic landmark structures within 1,000 feet of the subject property. I'd like to show you a few pictures. There's the subject site. This is looking if you were standing with Bruce B. Downs to your back, north side of the existing parking lot. Excuse me. This is north along Preserve Walk Lane. So this is the internal drive, the AMC Theaters here to the west. This is the north side of the parking lot looking west towards the AMC. This is north across Highwoods Preserve Parkway, so the site would be to the south. There's the neighbor, again, the AMC to the west. Southeast across Bruce B. Downs. And then to the south is a strip center with commercial uses, and you see there retail. And here's the intersection at Bruce B. Downs and Highwood Preserve Lane. The Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the petition and finds the request consistent with applicable City of Tampa land development regulations. Should it be the pleasure of City Council to approve the waivers that are identified in the staff report, further site plan modifications must be completed by the applicant in between first and second reading. Those revisions are in the staff report, as the revision sheet have been provided to council as well as the applicant, and staff is available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Applicant, please.
Good evening. I am Scott Stannard with Commercial Site Solutions. We are the applicant for this project. We are at 21764 State Road 54 in Lutz, Florida. Staff has done a nice job of conveying to you guys what it is we plan to do. This would be a redevelopment of what is now an empty Ruby Tuesdays. That will be redeveloped into the 19,000 and a couple of square feet of small grocery retail. As staff mentioned, we are compliant with the exception of the two waivers. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on those. We feel it's an improvement, actually, because we've had arborists go out. We're going to be taking down some of the dead trees, replacing it with new landscaping, beefing that up. We're actually staying within the footprint of the existing impervious area and reducing that impervious area a little bit. So we feel like it's a nice fit for what's out there. And then we'll be adding a new sidewalk along Highwood. Really surprising that there's not one there now. I think it'll be a nice addition for the pedestrians that use that area and the bus stop that's out there as well. So fairly straightforward. I'll leave it to you guys to ask me any questions that you may have.
Any questions from council? Nothing. Thank you, sir. I'll just say that I live out in New Tampa, and I'm glad to see this. The Ruby Tuesdays has become an eyesore out there. So to quote Mick Jagger, goodbye Ruby Tuesdays. So there you go. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Anybody here to comment the what? Anybody here to comment on item number 8? Doesn't he play third base for the Pittsburgh Pirates? No. Anybody here to comment on item number 8? Okay, may I have a motion to close?
Second.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Good, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Goods, do you mind taking item number 8, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number REZ 19-104, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 17520 Bruce B. Downs Boulevard in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification, PDA, plan development, alternative restaurant to plan development, to PD, plan development, retail sales, shoppers goods, providing an effective date. Petitioners met all the prescribed goals with pertaining to the city and planning commission, listing it as consistent.
We have a motion by Councilman Good, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? You're fine.
Conclude the registry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 10. Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading adoption will be held on February 6, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 11, actually.
Thank you, City Council. Rebecca Kurt, Legal Department. On item 11 and 12 are related items. The vacating is related to the following plan development. As you'll note, I believe on your agenda, there was a substitute ordinance for the rezoning based upon the changes that occurred from the last continuance. There's also a substitute ordinance for the vacating that I will be handing out to you. if it is city council's pleasure, you can open these and hear them together. However, you do need to consider the vacating separately from the plan development rezoning that's before you. You need to consider the vacating first, and you need to apply the separate standards.
And Mr. Gardner, do you wish to address the issue of consolidating these two?
Yes, True Gardner 400 North Ashley Drive, we are absolutely fine with opening these two together as we've done in the past, but agree with Rebecca, obviously we need the vacating to be approved in order for the PD to be approved since it involves that property. And but we are fine with those being heard together.
I see no problem with proceeding concurrently. Any objection from any council members? Okay, we will, yes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, if you could just make ask for a motion to accept both substitutions for both 11 and 12. So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Jimmy Cook, Planning and Development staff. I'll be doing the report on item number 11, which is a vacating request, file number VAC 19-27. Applicant is requesting to vacate a portion of Carmen Street, lying north of North B Street, south of Cass Street, east of Gilchrist Avenue, and west of CSX Railroad. You can see on that overhead. The applicant's properties crosshatched in red. Carmen Street outlined in yellow is which they're wishing to vacate. CSX Railroad corridor is right here. Across the railroad corridor is University of Tampa property. The existing right-of-way, Carmen Street, is unimproved. There's an existing gate at the railroad right-of-way at the intersection right here, so it's kind of blocked off with a gate. It's 50 feet wide. It's occupied by existing utilities, and although the right-of-way isn't located within the historic district, it is located in the West Tampa Overlay District. Proposed vacating is approximately 5,400 square feet. And it was originally came out of the extension of Collins Addition, which was platted in October of 1890. It was originally platted as North D Street, and this is highlighted right here is what they wish to vacate. All the other highlights are existing vacatings that got approved in the past. Go over a couple photos. This is Carmen Street looking east towards the dead end. The CSX has a fence, a gate right here, and the right-of-way they wish to apply to vacates behind that fence. Here's a close-up of that gate, and believe it or not, there is a gate behind whatever's leaning up against that. Here's Carmen Street looking west from Delaware Avenue. This is not to be vacated, this is just looking back. Here's Delaware Avenue looking north from Carmen Street. It's also not to be vacated. The area that they're asking to vacate is off here, off to the side. Now a couple pictures of the applicant's property. This is the southeast corner of intersection of Carmen and Gilchrist Avenue. This is the applicant's property looking south from Carmen Street near the dead end. And this is the applicant's property northeast from the corner of Fig and Gilchrist. And this is the abutting property on the north side of what's being asked to be vacated. Staff objects to this vacating request based on comments received from the following reviewing agencies: CSX Railroad, Transportation Planning, Urban Design, and Traffic Design. I do believe I have a representative from CSX here that would like to speak to their objection, and also Jonathan Scott's here to represent Transportation Planning for their objection. If you choose to approve this vacating request, following easements and conditions will need to be reserved. Overall easement for CSX, Transportation, Spectrum, Wastewater, and TECO. The applicant will need to comply with chapters 13 and 27 in regards to tree preservation. They'll need to remove any existing street lights and comply with Tampa Fire rescue conditions. I'd also like to note that the rezoning application is not contingent on the vacating, so if you do not deny the vacating, the rezoning can move forward without this. They would just have to revise their site plan and take the proposed dog park off of it. And that's it. Steph, I guess you have any questions?
Councilman Dingfelder.
Mr. Cook, could you put up the very first overhead you had?
The aerial?
Correct. So the little vacating trapezoid there in yellow butts on the east side, butts directly up to the CSX right-of-way, correct?
CSX Railroad right away, yes, sir, is right here.
There's no connection to any other street or anything else?
To the railroad or to the piece they want to vacate?
From the piece they want to vacate, it doesn't connect into any other alleys, streets, or anything else?
There was an old alley right here, that was previously vacated some time back, that runs north-south off, right through this block.
Okay.
This is improved right away, this is improved right away.
And you
This
said
is improved.
objections from CSX and Transportation, we're going to hear from who else objected?
Urban design and traffic design, and basically all four objections are about the same thing.
What's urban design's problem?
Access to the railroad corridor, there's a potential, there's a master plan for a greenways and trails project to use the CSX corridor and potential light rail in the future.
So aren't there other ways to get into that CSX corridor? I'm looking at Fig and North B and.
Yeah, if CSX is here, I would probably let them talk about that, because
No,
there
but-
are several other right-of-ways along the corridor that still exist, but there are a lot that have been vacated over the years. Nothing recently, though, ever since the master plan has been adopted by the planning commission.
No, I meant from the city's perspective in terms of an urban trail.
Well,
I mean, it's not to me, it doesn't look like that critical because there's so many other places to.
well, I don't have the actual map,
If
but
you were riding your bike through the neighborhood and you wanted to get on the trail, you could go Fig, you could go Cass, you could go North
yeah, right,
B.
you can go Cass. Fig originally was part of this petition, they removed that from this petition, so originally they were applying for that, just based on the objection. So Fig would still exist, North B's gone, and then down here, it doesn't touch North A, but Kennedy's right here, where it crosses.
Could we require them to, at a minimum, allow pedestrian access through there if and when there was a trail?
That's part of the condition. If you do choose to approve this, it's reserved in the ordinance an access easement and a transportation easement.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The rezoning request is REZ 1992. It's a request for the properties located at 1102 through 1116 West Carmen Street from industrial general to planned development for multifamily residential.
Danny Collins, with your planning commission staff, I've been sworn in. This case is in the Central Tampa Planning District, and more specifically in the West Tampa Urban Village. The subject site is located with proximity to transit, with the transit stop at the corner of North Boulevard and West Cass Street. The closest public recreation facility is Julian B. Lane Park, which is within a half-mile to the northeast of the subject site. The subject site is located within a level C evacuation zone. This is an aerial of the subject site. This is the subject site shown or outlined in purple. This is West Cass Street, just to the a couple blocks to the north. This is West Kennedy to the south, with Willow a couple blocks to the west. And then this is that CSX track. And then this is the University of Tampa, just to the east of the subject site. This is the adopted future land use map. The site is in the UMU Urban Mixed Use 60 future land use category, which is intended for areas for intensive and in general commercial office and residential development. There is UMU 60 to the northeast and northwest and south of the subject site. And then there is some public shown in blue just to the east of the subject site. And then there's some, as you get down towards Kennedy, there is some CC 35 that's shown in red, residential 35, and then that RMU 100. The Planning Commission staff found the request to be consistent with many of the policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to urban villages and development mixed-use corridors. The site is located within the West Tampa Urban Village, which encourages a mixed-use development pattern. The comprehensive plan supports infill development, such as the proposal that brings density to areas with access to transit employment and employment centers. The proposed development also provides access along the north side of the subject site to the potential South Tampa Gateway, located directly to the east of the subject site, which is supported in the comprehensive plan. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the request consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Here is an aerial map of and zoning map of the surrounding area. The subject property is in orange. The immediate surrounding area is zoned industrial general. Then when you zoom out and you go to the west of Willow and to the north of Cass, you start getting into the historically single-family residential neighborhood that's been transitioning over to multifamily residential. Here is a site plan of the applicant's proposal. I know that the applicant's presentation will go into more detail about exactly what they're proposing. However, at this time, they're proposing a total of 251 multifamily dwelling units within one building with integrated parking garage. The property is 1.82 acres that was currently occupied by warehousing and distribution and office uses. The property is in the West Tampa Overlay District and is required to comply with Section 27241. The proposed setbacks to the north are 0, south is 0, east is 3, and west is 2 feet with a maximum building height of 73 feet. Based on the required proposed number of bedrooms and dwelling units, 382 parking spaces are required and 333 are proposed. That is a parking reduction of 13%, subject to a city council waiver approval. All of the proposed parking, again, will be in integrated parking spaces through one two-way driveway off of West Carmen Street in this general location. Again, just for your reference, as Mr. Cook stated from our right-of-way division, this is the portion of Carmen that is proposing to be vacated. The applicant is proposing a dog park in this area. Again, with the transportation easements placed, if the vacation is approved, no vertical construction can occur in that area. The allowable maximum FAR for this land use category is 2.5. The applicant is proposing a 2.48 Florida area ratio, so they're well within their development entitlements. There are some changes between first and second reading. There are some minor changes from development design, planning, design, and development coordination. Transportation did find this inconsistent because of the 13% parking reduction. They also did have some changes between first and second reading. Natural Resources found it consistent. Again, some site modifications to some of the tree data and open space data that is on the site plan. And Urban Design did find this consistent. So again, there are waivers, there are revisions to occur to the site plan between first and second reading. Overall, the development review compliance staff did find this inconsistent, specifically for the 13% parking waiver reductions. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions from council? Councilman John Dingfelder.
But for the parking waiver, would staff have found this consistent?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Applicant.
Okay.
Good evening, Truett Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive. Here on behalf of Wingspan Development and then Gary and Andrew Cohen of ABC Capital. And we're excited. We've been working on this. Had a continuance the last time, which we were hoping not to have. But we feel like you'll think that this is a very progressive project. It directly addresses a lot of the things that Tampa has talked about as goals and needs. In particular, attainably priced from a rental standpoint. We can get into that in granular detail, but that's been a goal for this development from the beginning. Secondly, transit oriented. We are 82 feet from, so if you look back at the site plan, you'll see we are adjacent to the CSX rail corridor, but the actual rail line is on the far eastern side, so we're 82 feet away from that. Third, we'll have an urban pocket park And then lastly, we believe this will have a positive community impact. And with that, we just wanted to thank staff. This is an out-of-the-box development, and they've been great throughout, and I want to thank them for all their efforts. With respect to the vacating, if I could. So when we were last in front of you and requested the continuance, we actually had 2 vacatings proposed. Move this up since the script is running over. On the bottom, this is Fig Street. We were proposing to vacate this section here, which is actually improved. And then on the north side is this portion of Carmen, which is currently unimproved. CSX at that time was the primary reason for our continuance, and what we did was we dropped the Fig vacating altogether, the improved section, leaving the unimproved portion of Carmen. So wanted to just clarify where we were before and where we are now. So, Mr. Dingfelder, as you mentioned, there are other access points, but specifically, we were proposing to vacate on the north and the south. We've dropped the vacating to the south, but would like to maintain the Carmen vacating on the north. Next, and Jimmy did a great job of showing this, but this is just another map showing in yellow is our property. Again, Gilchrist on the west, Carmen on the north, Fig on the south. Everything you see in the purple color are existing vacatings in that immediate area, so you can just see the pattern of vacating that's occurred. And then another question that came up early on, Mr. Dingfelder, I believe it was you, which I think was, the question was, is this at all impeding access through the streets, not necessarily to the corridor, but through the streets? And if I may, what we're proposing is just this stub right here, so in no way does that impede the access for vehicles around there at all. Then where things really get interesting, I think this is both ironic but also speaks to the merits of the vacating. As Mary mentioned, there are 3 primary objections that apply both to CSX, to transportation, as well as urban design. And what's interesting is for the vacating application itself, when staff reviews, they're not allowed to look at the zoning application. But one of the reasons why I wanted these 2 applications to be heard together is because I think that even though there are objections, what we're providing here directly answers those objections. So what I'm going to be referring to is a blow up of just that section right there of Carmen, and this is what it will become. So again, objections: maintain access to a rail corridor. 2, transportation would like a rail pad along the CSX right-of-way. And 3, this is the Greenway and Trails Master Plan area, and which goes back to the access. So what we're proposing, again, this is just that little stub section of Carmen, is this pocket park. Easements will be granted back over both for pedestrian as well as for vehicles. And then you'll notice directly, and again, this is on the PD site plan as a requirement. This area right here is designated for a future rail pad, one of the exact objections from transportation. And then secondly, access. This is pedestrian access. And again, transportation department is not allowing us to put any sort of permanent fixtures or furniture or improvements in this, so a vehicle would have to be able to traverse it too. So we think it has the benefit of acting like a park, great for a dog park. It will be, we want it to serve, we're all about this trailhead should that plan ever come about, and we want this to be one of the primary points of access to that trailhead. Further, just one follow-up on the vacating itself. If it's approved, the developer would handle all those improvements, all the ongoing maintenance, And again, easements would be granted back to the city. So it would function as it was open. It would be improved as a passive park. It would have the connectivity. It would have the rail pad. And we would simply own it and take care of it, which the developer feels that it's in a better position to do that than the city because they'll be immediately next door to it. So that's it on the vacating side. Happy to answer any questions on it now, or I can go into the rezoning and answer questions on both.
Any questions on the vacating? Councilman Dingfelder.
Well, not a question on the big end, but on the building itself. Mr. Gardner, when I look at what you provided as elevation, I'm not sure which, looks like it's page 3. It looks like the apartments are down on the first floor.
Correct.
And also I see some ground floor access on this elevation of 3. When I look at that picture there, it implies maybe commercial on the first floor?
So I see exactly what you're talking about, and what's interesting is I'm going to get into community outreach, but one of the comments that we got early on was A, for commercial. The feeling here is since it's internal to a block, the only thing worse than not providing commercial is providing commercial that doesn't work. The outreach turned out to be they understood that, but what they did ask for was to try to activate that ground level. So initially, all those units did not have the ability to access them from the street level. We thought that was a great suggestion, went back to the drawing board, and so basically all those ground floor units are walk-ups similar to a brownstone type development you'd see. So we thought that was a great suggestion and made the change as a result of it.
It's funny, one of the first projects that came along back in this area behind UT, Linda Salcena and I were in the same position 15 years ago. You might have been
that was pretty normal for the two of you.
Yeah, you might have been doing it, but we both asked for that ground floor walk down access. And when I drive by, I still see it today, and I think it's kind of nice because perhaps people actually use it.
Right.
You know, instead of having to go into their building or use their car or whatever, maybe they could just walk out their steps and, you know, and be right there. So.
And one of the groups we were talking to actually felt that, and they had a study to reflect it, that the rents were higher on those ground floors with the access. Mainly, this is anecdotal, but with a pet, much better to walk directly out than have to walk through the corridors and out. So again, we thought that was a great suggestion and incorporated into the plan,
So
and
for the
we're
record,
committed to that.
We're not representing commercial here.
No.
Councilman Maniscalco.
So piggybacking on that, I like the emphasis on that pedestrian access on that ground level. How about those palm trees? Can we just have regular shade trees? If you're gonna have people using those access points, is that an issue to change it where, because palm trees provide little to nothing?
We're not committed at this point to any specimen tree. I can tell you it's a tight and challenging site. And then I believe there are some active lines above, but the city code provides a whole host of trees that work, that stay out of the power lines.
So you're not committed to the palm trees? And
No, it's part of the reason probably for the palms, for the architect, is that you would actually be able to not only see the trees, but see the architecture of the building, but we're not committed to the palms at all.
All right, so just a suggestion, to look at trees that do offer, shade and whatnot, since you focus so much on that ground level access, so people will be utilizing that sidewalk and whatnot.
Appreciate the comment, we'll pass it on.
Anyone else? And I'd also have a suggestion that you have maybe a subway on the first floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Duly noted.
I'm going to joke and very funny.
But not a Ruby Tuesdays.
There you go.
On the rezoning, most of the objections were on the vacating side. I do want to touch on the rezoning. As Mary stated, staff found this to be consistent. That included Planning Commission as well as the Planning and Zoning staff. We do have the one technical objection on transportation. With respect to notices and community outreach, all we have heard is nothing but positives. I've got 4 letters of support that I'll submit at the end. So nothing but positives there. People really get this, understand it. When we talk through them about the different aspects, the light bulb really went on, especially when you look at what the site currently is used for. And with respect to parking, 2 things. One, I'll have a letter that was actually just modified tonight that I'll submit for the record. This is from our consultants at Kimley Horn, and the conclusion is, again, we are proposing 333 parking spaces. Total required per code is 382. That's the 13% reduction. And Kimley Horn did a study, which we did our own analysis of other areas, so I'm gonna focus on one aspect of theirs, which was using the ITE trip generation table, and their conclusion was that 329 would be required, and we're providing 333. I'll submit this, but that's their conclusion. As you can see, it's an official letter from their transportation analyst, and it's signed and sealed. The comparison that we did, which I think is really interesting for council, and I know this issue's been coming up, but really so you could see it. So with this North Hyde Park area, obviously adjacent to downtown, very urban, intended to be very urban. So what we did is we took our proposed development, 251 units. Once you apply city code, you end up with 333 parking spaces, which includes not only the spaces for the units, but also the visitor count. And so 333 matches with the 382 required. That's our 13% reduction. When you look to Seminole Heights, which I think you could argue is less dense than this area and intended to be less dense than this area, they have the same general parking requirement. They have their own parking code, so they do not have that visitor requirement that we have to waive so often. But then smartly, they have offsets if you do bicycle parking and offsets if you do motorcycle parking. So we have in our development 55 bike parking spaces and 13 motorcycle spaces that we're not getting credit for. So if this development was just in Seminole Heights alone, parking required would be 261. We're providing 333. More telling, downtown to the CBD and the Channel District, when you apply those, and I think probably the best analogy of this is the Channel District. Channel District's on the east side of downtown. This is on the west side of downtown. Those have the same parking requirements. If this development was in either the Channel District or the CBD, 152 spaces required, which is basically half of what it is that we're providing. So with that, we feel that the justification for the parking waiver is fair and reasonable. The last thing this developer wants and its lending partners is to create a development that doesn't park itself and fails as a result of it. We feel like we have more than enough parking, and if this truly is going to be an attainable project, the cost of these spaces is exorbitant, and so you need to keep those down. I think we could argue that a further justification is warranted based on the information provided, but that's the amount that we feel is appropriate for this, and we hope that that's justified in your eyes.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Your target demographic, who do you look at, your customer base here? Is it gonna be students? Is it gonna be?
So that question has come up all the time. This is not intended to be a student housing development. Those are specialized developers that do those. There probably will be some students, but it'll be controlled. When you have a student housing development, it's its own management group that specializes in that. This is not one of those at all.
No, and the reason I ask is because not everybody owns a car or chooses to own a car. You're providing an adequate number. I believe it's a small reduction considering the size and the vicinity of downtown and, the places that potential residents could be, working at whatever to get around. So I don't think it's an unreasonable waiver request. And if that's the only reason that it was found inconsistent, this is nothing, looking at the grander scale.
Thank you. And that is the only reason for the inconsistency. That being said, in full candor, we have, as I mentioned before, it's a challenging site. We've got a total of 7 waivers. I've got justifications for each of those 7. One of the 7 is the parking, which we've touched on. So on rebuttal, or if you have questions now on any of those, happy to address them.
Any further questions?
And I'll just close with submitting 4 letters from the record from immediate neighbors as well as stakeholders and organizations in the community who wanted to express their support.
Thank you, sir. And nothing else, Mr. Gardner?
Not this time.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone here to publicly comment on items 11 and 12? If so, please come forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Aretha Barthel. I'm intended to be present. I intended to be present to speak in support, but due to this project being listed number 11 and 12 on their agenda, I expected a late night and I could not attend. I have given permission for my letters of support to be read. The first letter is from the rezoning of 1102 West Comma rezoning request. Honorable council members, I am writing support in rezoning the request for 1102 North Commerce Street from the IG to the PD for the Nickel Michael Family Project. The project has been thoughtfully redesigned to contribute to the Northern High Park street life and have considered current and future connections to alternate mode of transit and the soon-to-be installed cycle tracks on Cass and the game-changing opportunities for CSH, commuting rail. As our urban development grows, it also important that development like this set aside units for more affordable rent and provide variety units type to accommodate the variety type of city dwellers. This project is highly qualified, designed, and fit with the environment, looking and feeling of North Hyde Park area. In addition to the project team has provided sufficient investment community to the walkability of the North Hyde Park neighborhood by funding future sidewalks improvement to that community. I asked them, I hope you would agree and will move to approve this project. This is by telegraph. I have intended to present to speak in support. Due to this project being listed number 11 and 12 on the agenda, I expect late nights and I cannot attend. I have given permission for my letters to be supported and read. This is from the Urban Teller Retreat. I am writing you to lend my support for Nikki's development project that is planned for Northern Hyde Park. As the manager of the Urban, my time up?
30 seconds.
For the Urban Term Retreat, a dog care and boarding resort adjustment in the project site. I have excited the possibility of smart growth and the fit of value and surrounding area. This portion of the neighborhood has been overlooked, and a project like this is open opportunity for business and around North Hyde Park to flourish. Nikki is not created a new, in fact, a priority.
Thank you, ma'am. And if you'd like to submit those, we can take a look at those. Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your time. Next, please.
Hello, Kat Adkins, CSX Transportation, 500 Water Street, Jacksonville, Florida. CSX objects to the street vacation of that portion of Carmen Street. It's a public road right-of-way that has been there for almost as long as the railroad has been there. Eliminating that access, I know you said that there are other accesses, but as you've seen, different access routes to our property have already been cut off. We want to protect and preserve the access rights that we have. Vehicular access through a park, it's going to require coordination. It's going to damage our property value. We don't understand why you would eliminate our access for a dog park. and we're about protecting access to our property. We talk about future developments in the area. They have their property that they can develop on. There's no need to vacate that street. They can just put the dog park somewhere on their property or eliminate it altogether. CSX has this property currently under contract, and it could damage our transaction if this roadway is closed. I don't know if the buyer would walk away, and then we would really be damaged by that. So we just want it logged that we object. I also have another question on the setbacks. 3 feet from the property line that's abutting to the CSX railway property and corridor, how are they going to maintain that building? How are they going to be able to do their work on it? You know, future maintenance, painting, whatever happens. So again, are we going to be damaged by them needing to come onto our property, wanting to take additional property from us to do the maintenance on their building?
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Dingfelder.
Yes, ma'am. Question? Well, a response a little bit. It's my understanding that they're going to leave the other 25 feet for the adjacent parcel. So
I thought it was a 3-foot setback.
They split the street in half. I think the street is 50 feet wide.
Oh, you're talking about Carmen, not the setback, building setback.
Okay. Maybe we're on a different plane there. But my question to CSX is, by the picture, it doesn't appear that y'all have been using that right away to get to your property. Is that correct?
We use it not all the time. I mean, with railroads, we have sites all over the place where when we do use a property, it might be every 9 years, but when we need it, we really need it. And so to say that we don't have daily use of it, we probably don't. But that doesn't mean that at some point we wouldn't need it. And we have been marketing this property with those access points. And so we've been marketing it with Avison Young for 2 years. So we're finally under contract, and now this has come up, and it could be very damaging to us.
So your track runs down through the middle of that, correct? Or?
Our track is more on the east side of that, and so our setback from the center line of track from what we're selling is 20 foot from the center line of track, so we're selling an 80-foot corridor right there to a potential developer.
80-foot, that's an 80-foot corridor.
Mm-hmm. So we have our 20-foot offset that we will retain. Maybe it's 65 feet. Maybe it's 65, because I think total it's 85 feet, so.
And does your corridor extend down to those other streets that I made reference to, Fig and
Yes, it definitely goes down to Fig, and there is some connectivity from North A, North B, but those aren't as prime access routes as Fig and Carmen are. So now you've got to take this, I mean, I don't know if you've driven it, but it's very narrow. You've got the donation center there. You've got a lot of people parking on the street there. So it's not a great access route that Carmen and Fig are to get to that corridor.
Thank
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Haynes, 2910 North 16th Street. I intended to be present to speak in support, but due to this project being listed number 11 and 12 on the agenda, I accepted a late night and I could not attend. I have given permission for my letters and support to be read. Rezone 1992, 1116 West Carmen Street, Niche Apartments. On behalf of Carlos Ramirez, I am writing today as a citizen of the city of Tampa and not as a board member of the Civic Association of the North High Park Alliance. I have spoken to Mr. Corn and his team several times during the development of this project. I have seen them listen and implement the changes that we need to continue the growth and develop of this area. We have had issues in the past with heavy student population in many parties that spill into the next morning and cause issues with noise, litter, and property damage in our area. My concern for the number of students renting these units was addressed by limiting the number of apartments that can be leased to the applicants with a cosigner. Existing parking complexes in this area, 1/3 are empty because of the residents choose to park in the street. This causes problems with existing homeowners and area business who rely on street parking. With the new team with the new restaurant and business coming in the area, parking will continue to be an issue. I spoke with Mr. Coynes and his team, and he agreed on utilizing the first floor of the garage for visitor public parking with time restrictions to elevate some of the parking issues. We have allowed visitors of nearby restaurant businesses to utilize these spots. The elevation exhibits we are shown contains palm trees. We encourage all developers to activate the sidewalks and use the shade trees that will allow some of the relief of the Florida sun. In speaking with Mr. Corn, he agreed to include shade producing trees that fits the area. I am in support of rezoning of the project. Thank you, Carlos Ramirez. On my second, I intend to be present to speak in support, but due to I am right today in the support of the niche developed property plan in North Park Highway. For years, the community have asked developers to build the future of the transportation in mind. I am thankful that the niche has taken the approach to located adjustment, CXS rail. Niche is preparing the possibility of future public use in order to show transit viability in our city, and we need developers like Niche and to step up and begin building along the transit corridors. With the plans, transit, public.
And if you'd like, sir, your time is up. You can submit it and we'll take a look at those letters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Casey Ellison, 1717 East 9th Avenue, and I have not been sworn.
Well, if you would like to be sworn, this is your
Sure.
great opportunity. And if anybody else is planning on speaking this evening and you have not been sworn, then you may rise if you're able to do so and prepare to experience being sworn in by Mr. Jim Crew.
You swear or affirm you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
This is an excellent example of urban design.
And I'm sorry, your name, if you...
So, Casey Ellison.
Thank you.
1717 East 9th Avenue. This is an excellent example of urban design. These are the types of projects that need to happen in the city of Tampa. It has an attainable housing element to it. It has great urban design. I personally have visited Wingspan's projects in the Chicago area, and I can tell you that everything they do is first class. And we, as a city, should embrace developers like Wingspan to come here to our city. The partnership between Cohen and Wingspan is a strong one, and I think that tonight we should thank them for all the hard work that they put into this and the excellence that they're bringing here to our city. And I move you guys to approve this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, please. And after this gentleman, is anyone else planning on speaking this evening on these items? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Derek Seckinger, 13110 Green Gauge Lane, and I'm here to lend my support for this project. As anyone knows who knows this area very well, south of Cass Street and to the east of Willow, it is a highly industrialized area. I think this project is going to be a beautiful addition and also help change the area. It's definitely seems like it's consistent with the development that's going on in the city. And I think similar to what's happened in North Hyde Park, the way that Pollock Shores has come and basically redeveloped that whole area. So, and also in reference to the CSX, the vacating, the comment made by CSX and the vacating of that property, I can tell you if anyone's driven by that property, maybe taking a shortcut, trying to bypass Cass Street development, the road project that's going on, you'll see that project, that gate probably hasn't been open in 10 years. The growth is so high that you can't even begin to walk through that. So to say that it's walkable, I would definitely disagree with that. And there's a big access to the south on Fig Street. In fact, it was so bad on Fig Street, the dumping that was going on the CSX property that was not maintained, that big barriers were put up to keep the dumping from being had over there. And so I think this is going to be a great addition. I think the green space for the dogs is a great idea. And again, just lend my support to the project in general.
Thank you very much, sir. Any rebuttal or anything further, Mr. Gardner?
I did, and I'm trying to somewhat contain myself because the reason for the continuance the last time was for CSX. As I mentioned at the beginning, we were proposing to vacate Carmen and Fig so they could keep access. We decided to drop Fig, and a lot of thought went into that. We actually lost units as a result of it. We did some research on the case law. It's very well settled that while a property owner with adjacent property is entitled to access, it's not entitled to each and every access point that it desires. Figuring into our decision to decide on Carmen versus Fig, and again, this goes to the usage that was stated, how they utilize these. If you look, this is Fig. They've got a series of jersey barriers. I don't know when the last time that was used, but this assertion on Carmen being used, and I know the gentleman in front of me just mentioned it, this is the current state of that. I don't know when the last time that was used, but it doesn't look like it was any time recent at all. And then lastly, I do take issue with an agency like CSX that gets up here as a quasi-public agency wanting to maintain its access points, but then at the same time, as the CSX representative admitted, they've got this property for sale to a private property owner. So to, on the one hand, say we're a quasi-public agency, we want to maintain our access points, but on the other hand, to say we're trying to enhance our property value so we can make the most money on a sale to a private property owner, I take issue with. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but I did want to at least state those points.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Goods.
Well, it's just so interesting. I'm so familiar with the areas. I grew up on North Beach Street. The old fair used to be right there on Cass Street when I was a young boy, you know. I'm real familiar with that area. Just curious, how many acres is that property, Mr. Drew?
Make sure I state this right because there's two different. The acreage itself, pre-vacating, is 1.77.
1.77?
The vacating itself that we would be picking up is only 2,500 square feet, which is 0.05 acres. So for a total of 1.82 acres.
I guess I'm so selfish. I'm just looking at these projects and the acreage and a lot of the acreage I have over on the east side of town, and they have projects like this, Mr. Dingfellow, you know? But I was listening to those wonderful letters that were read by those two individuals that talked about affordable housing. Are these affordable housing units?
So this is, so to be clear, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is attainable, which is separate and distinct from affordable. Affordable has a component to it of some sort of public contribution. This is a straight market rate development, but it is geared towards smaller, more affordable units, with a lot of these units having rents, hopefully once things shake out, under $1,000 a month, which is really unheard of in this area and especially in the CBD.
Thank you, sir.
You should get two of them.
Anyone else? Oh, ma'am, no, you may not. Sorry. Time's up. Sorry.
One bite at the end. Sorry.
Anyone else from council? Okay. May we have a motion to close?
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Dingfelder, do you, sir, mind taking item number 11?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And I would ask Mr. Gardner if he hasn't already, that for sale flyer that you had, is that in the record?
It's not, but I'm happy to put it into the record.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
We have to reopen now.
Might as well just do it.
Move to reopen.
Thank you.
Motion to reopen by Councilman Citro, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Go ahead, sir.
Into the record. A motion to close, please.
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I can remind council that the ordinance is the one that was handed out to you, the title that you have for the vacating. Thank you.
So what do you want read first?
Actually, we're taking one at a time. We'll take a motion and vote on 11, and then we'll move to 12. So if you just read the title of the vacate, please.
Okay. In regard to VAC 19-27, I'll move the following ordinance for first reading. An ordinance vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning a portion of right-of-way known as Carmen Street lying south of Cass Street, north of North B Street, east of Gilchrist Avenue, and west of CSX Transportation Railroad right-of-way line in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, the same being more fully described in section 1 hereof, subject to certain easement, reservations, covenants, conditions, and restrictions more particularly set forth herein, provide an effective date. Specifically, that's a little stub portion. I'm not big on vacating alleys or streets, and you guys know that. But in this case, it's a little dead-end stub portion of the street amounting to 2,500 square feet, which is next to nothing. CSX objects, but I don't believe their objections are, with all due respect to young lady, I don't believe the objections are substantive. They haven't been using it, that right of way, that for access, it's pretty obvious, all overgrown. And frankly, their fence was probably illegal to start with. But anyway, with that, I'll move the vacating.
We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading adoption will be held on February 6, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to read the ordinance?
Sure, you may.
For
Go
number
ahead,
12?
sir. Yep, go ahead, sir.
In regard to REZ 19-92, I'll move the following ordinance for first reading. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1102, 1112, and 1116 West Carmen Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1, from zoning district classifications IG, industrial general, to PD, plan development, residential multifamily, provide an effective date.
If you can, please.
Specifically,
Thank you.
Specifically, I believe that the petitioner has met its burden of proof to provide competent substantial evidence that development as conditioned as shown in the site plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the city code. Specifically, but for the planning commission staff and the staff reports I'll incorporate, as well as our own staff report and our own staff member who testified that except for the parking requirement, our city staff was in support. In regard to the parking reduction, I do believe that the petitioner has met its burden in showing us the disparity that we have in parking requirements in some urban parts of town, for example, Seminole Heights, where this project would have been allowed without a waiver as compared to this particular area, which has a stricter requirement. And I believe that with all that's going on these days with ride sharing and scooters, and that this is a kind of a college area, and I got a feeling this is going to be a lot of young people, a lot of college people who don't have as many cars as we do, that it justifies the parking waiver.
I was still second.
We have a yes, sir.
And also, if you can include the revisions as required on the revision sheet between first and second reading, please.
Correct.
Thank you.
Incorporate that.
We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading adoption will be held on February 6, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
Mary Semony. Yes. Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
are we ready to proceed?
We'll wait until they do.
Okay. You're welcome.
All right, folks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The last item on your agenda, item number 13, is REZ 1997. It's a rezoning request for property located on Howard Avenue, Nassau Street, Grace Street, from plan development and commercial incentive to plan development and commercial incentive for hotel use.
Chairman, if I may, this year, which is, it says that I am a trustee of the property adjacent to this subject parcel, so I will not be voting.
I'm going to follow Form 9B, which says it's too late, and I'm tired, so I'm not going to be voting, Jay. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Danny Collins with the Planning Commission staff. I've been sworn in. Our last case is in the Central Tampa Planning District, and more specifically, it's in the West Tampa Urban Village. The subject site is located with proximity to transit. There's a transit stop on North Howard Avenue. North Howard is a transit emphasis and mixed-use corridor, which is identified in the comprehensive plan. The closest public recreation facility is Villa Brothers Park, which is located within a half mile to the southwest of the subject site. The site is within a level D evacuation zone. This is an aerial of the subject site. You'll see the site exists of 3 parcels found along North Howard. It's outlined in the color purple. This is North Howard here. This is West Nassau Street. And this is Cypress Street just to the south of the subject site. This is the, excuse me, this is the adopted future land use map. The site has 2 future land use categories. This red represents the community commercial 35, and then this brown shade represents the residential 20. Community commercial 35 is found along up and down North Howard, and then it transitions to that residential 20, and then ultimately to that residential 10 in that orange tan color. The Planning Commission staff found the request to be consistent with many of the policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to urban villages and mixed-use development. The PD is retaining a front entrance along North Howard Avenue, providing pedestrian access and connecting to the existing sidewalk. The comprehensive plan encourages the redevelopment of the city's historic structures. The proposed redevelopment of the cigar factory will become an asset to the community and will enhance Tampa's unique historical context. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff found the request consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dingfeld.
Question. You might have said this, and I apologize if I missed it. Is this particular building actually been designated locally?
It has. It's the historic Baldwin Brothers Cigar Factory.
But I mean, but it's in our historic registry? Because some cigar factories aren't.
I believe so.
Here we go. We have expertise.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. This cigar factory is known as the Tampa Cuban, and it's also known as the Baldwin Cigar Factory. It is a local landmark. The structure and the parcel, that rectangle that the cigar factory sits on. There is a subsequent satellite site that is designated for parking as part of the overall requirements here. That is not under review, or was not under review by the ARC, just the landmark building and the landmark site.
Thank you. Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. I'll show you an aerial with a zoning map of the subject property. Again, as Mr. Vila from Historic Preservation stated, and it's on page 3 of your staff report, this is a local landmark, cigar factory. Currently, the property is zoned planned development, and there's a portion of planned development to the south. I made an exhibit, again, in your staff report, which you should all have before you and have reviewed. The existing zoning of the subject property was approved several years ago. They were going to convert the cigar factory into a business professional office and then use this property approximately a block to the south for additional parking. Now the project that's before you tonight is to rezone the cigar factory property proper to a PD as well, and then rezone the property directly to the south for additional parking, and then the other portion that's on the north side of Grace would be rezoned back to commercial intensive. So this is what the zoning map currently looks like, and then this is what the proposal with the ordinance is before you tonight. Specifically as far as the project and the proposal, here's the site plan for just the PD portion of the application. The existing cigar factory is approximately 26,000 square feet. They're proposing to convert it into a hotel use. The building setbacks are north 5, south 0, east 10, and west 136 feet, and the maximum height of the proposed building is 50 feet. This property is unique in that it's a local landmark, as Ron stated. It did go to the ARC for review of the rezoning request. They did recommend approval of the rezoning for the reason that the application will keep the historic building intact. That the applicant respected the historic proportions and natures with their addition and the proposed parking design. Also, this property is in the West Tampa overlay, so those standards were also applicable to this review. Urban Design did find it consistent with 2 small site modifications to be made between first and second reading. As far as the waivers that are requesting, there are a total of 4 waivers. Again, I would remind City Council that, again, we're dealing with an existing structure, a local historic landmark that has to be reviewed through ARC criteria, as well as it's in the West Tampa overlay, so those criteria also came into play. Saying that, they are asking for 4 sub waivers to section 27-284 for various buffering for primarily for the parking spaces up against residential uses, as well as some of the buffering based on the location of the existing building. On page 2, the reduction of parking from required 75 parking spaces down to 62. That's a 13 parking space reduction, which is 17%. The Transportation Division did find this inconsistent based on that parking waiver. They are asking for a waiver for commercial access on the Nassau Street for these driveway cuts, because there are residential uses further to the west. So that's a waiver that's required. And the last waiver is to one of the West Tampa design criteria to allow chain link fencing along the north property line facing a public right-of-way, which is the alleyway. Saying that overall, the Development Review and Compliance staff did find this inconsistent, again, primarily because of the parking waiver request. Should it be the pleasure of council, please remember to include the revision sheet in your motion.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councilman Dingfelder.
How tall is the chain link fence that you made reference to? And where does it go from where to where?
One moment, please. Appears to be a 4-foot high decorative fence in this location, and it's as a result of the proposed pool.
I didn't hear the end of it.
They're proposing a pool, so it's required to have some sort of protective fence around it. However, the West Tampa overlay criteria says you cannot have a chain link fence that's visible from a right-of-way. And an alleyway is a right-of-way, so therefore a waiver is required.
I guess it just caught my attention, you said chain link, but I guess I'll ask the applicant, maybe they have something prettier in mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Applicant, please.
Good evening, members of council. Brian Sykes, representing Cigar Factory Tampa, LLC, the owner of the property. Address is 4923 West Cypress Street, Tampa, Florida, 33607, and I have been sworn in. I'd like to give a little history on the building and the property, because I think it's kind of fascinating. And I know I'll screw this up probably.
It's upside down.
Yep. Facing me. All right. So the building was originally constructed in 1904 for the Samuel I. Davis and Company cigar factory. It operated until about 1910 under Samuel I. Davis. And in 1910, plus or minus, there was a fire, allegedly arson, we have to say allegedly, and suffered a lot of significant damage. About 2011, Bauman Brothers came in and acquired the factory and continued its cigar factory operations. That lasted until about 1915 when the Tampa, Cuba cigar factory acquired the property, and that's when they installed the water tower that you notice on the structure. From there, it operated until about 1934 as a cigar factory, but 1934, with the repeal of Prohibition, we probably ostensibly had our first microbrew there. DeSoto Brewing Company came in, and they actually were brewing beers in that facility from 34 to about 36. From 36 on, there's just been a variety of uses that have never survived there. There's been mercantile companies, there have been clothing companies, Everwear Products, Royal Kitchens, Daystar. 2014, the property was acquired by the previous owner, and they were going to look at developing it as an office property, professional offices. But in 2016, my client acquired it with the intention of developing a hotel. My client is a owner-operator of hotels. They have about 30 properties in the southeast U.S. They build their own properties, manage a lot of their own properties, and they saw this as kind of a unique experience. The property is 1.77 acres. The portion that is going to be devoted to the hotel itself is 2 separate parcels, as were shown earlier. The main cigar factory parcel, and then to the south, the parking parcel. The original PD zoning for the office use had the parking a little bit further south down here. My client did not acquire that parcel when they acquired the cigar factory. And accordingly, we had to take that piece out of the PD, bring this piece into the PD, which is why we're here before you tonight. Why do this? Nothing's survived there for long periods of time. We're in the West Tampa Overlay District. We've got a historic structure. Seems like we'd be crazy to take this project on. Looking at it, what it looks like today in the inside, it's definitely not attractive. This is the lower level basement area. You can tell it's very dilapidated. Upper level, what it looks like today. Give you a couple more shots of what it looks like on the inside. Clearly it's going to need a lot of work. But as you can see with this photo, in the next couple I'm going to show you, there's a lot of character to this property. On the front facade, or the front of the building. And this is probably one of my favorites. Beautiful tile work that still exists on what was the main level of the cigar factory. What the proposed use is a 70-room boutique hotel. It will be surface parking, as was shown in the prior site plan. We are requesting a parking waiver, which I will get to in a minute. Property will have an entrance off of Nassau. That's one of the other waivers we're requesting. There is no reasonable way that we could have an entrance off of South Howard with the amount of traffic on South Howard, with the accessibility off of South Howard. So the actual entrance to the hotel will be over here. I actually have a couple of elevations that we can show what the proposed area will look like. Shows it a little bit better. You can see there will be the entrance. That is where this is the structure that the water tower was at one point in time located upon. That will be the main entrance to the hotel. The lobby will actually be in what is considered the basement to it today. We are having to raise the ceiling a little bit between the first and second levels to accommodate that ceiling heights that we need. But there'll be a lobby there, there'll be rooms, there will be a lounge over here, outdoor seating area there, so it's a nice inviting streetscape. There will be a pool on the property, and as Mary noted, the pool is actually over here. The pool will have a decorative fence around it, and there may be a misnotation on the site plan, which could have been why this said chain link fence. But it will be a decorative aluminum fence. We want it to tie in with the nature of the project. Obviously, a chain link fence would severely take away from that. There will be 2 additions to the building that are structural additions, but they are not increasing in the overall square footage or footprint of the building, and that is we have to have 2 exterior stair accesses. In working with the folks at Historic Preservation and working with staff, we've elected to go with a structure that is industrial in feel, and kind of in keeping with the industrial nature of the cigar factory. So there'll be one that is at the rear of the building, and then there will be a second one, and you can't quite see it in this one, but there'll be one that is along the alleyway. It actually shows up back in my site plan. So it's right there. There will be a lounge, limited service menu. It's not intended to be a full service restaurant. There will be on-site laundry facilities, workout facilities, what have you. The project, because it is a historic building, has to be restored and maintained in its historic condition. So we are going to be repointing the brick. The exterior will look as it does today, but hopefully in a much nicer fashion. Everything will be cleaned up. We've been working with Ron's group. In fact, my client is even working on getting a head start, hopefully, on getting the repointing of the brick, getting the windows ordered, and working with ARC on all of that. There are 2 main waivers that we need to discuss. One is, as I mentioned, the access off of Nassau. It's an essential waiver. There's just no possible way we could bring traffic in, or pedestrian or vehicular traffic, safely off of Howard. By bringing it in off of Nassau, we'll reduce those conflicts and those issues, and it'll allow the building to function as a hotel. The second waiver we're requesting is a parking waiver from 75 to 62 parking spaces. Transportation staff has given its technical objection to that. We have a couple things that we present, and I'll actually put these into the record as well. We did have Gulf Coast Consulting, who is our transportation planner and who did our transportation study for us on this project. They had gone through and looked at ITE, and based upon the ITE manual, we would require, 52 parking spaces, and we're going to be providing 62, so we would have an excess of 10 based upon ITE generation standards. My client's property management wing submitted a letter, which I'll submit to the record also, which indicates that over the last several years, because of Uber, because of Lyft, there's been a significant reduction in the number of people that park on their properties, and they're noticing that as well. Brought several articles that we'll submit into the record, just reading a couple things that back in 2015, cities have begun relaxing zoning requirements to set minimum parking allotments. There's more signs today that planners are even thinking differently about parking. Everything points to there's so much going on with rideshare. There are less and less people driving their own vehicles and parking their own vehicles today. And quite honestly, with this hotel, this is going to be more than likely a specialty business traveler, someone who's coming in, probably flying into Tampa, international, catching Uber, catching Lyft over, doing the same thing when they go downtown for their meetings, what have you, or the West Shore District. Both waivers, and actually all of the waivers we're requesting, we believe are justified due to the fact that this is a historic property. We are constrained. We can't change the structure of the building. It's a designated historic property. We have no way to really do anything further with the parking. We've done as much as we can. We've kept it within the limits of the property. We have tried to stay away from going further or deeper into the neighborhoods, trying to keep everything out onto Howard. And for those reasons, we believe that we've met our burden of proof with respect to the requested waivers. Other than the parking waiver, staff found the rest of the request consistent, and we would ask that you do too.
Any questions? Councilman Dingell.
I know it's getting late, but Mr. Sykes, can you clarify? Staff had mentioned something about a chain link fence. I looked on the site plan. All I see is a 4-foot decorative fence.
It is a 4-foot decorative fence around the pool. Yes,
That's
sir.
what, wrought iron or something around?
More than likely aluminum, but the aluminum that looks.
Right.
I know that Mr.
And
Beal's staff is going to be imposing
no
some.
chain link associated with
no
the
chain link
final
associated.
product.
No, sir.
And just as an aside, I know I shouldn't prejudge any project, Mr. Shelby. I've been through this building once or twice. It's absolutely amazing inside, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then I have to vote for it also because I see on the project it's named the Hotel Sadie, and my daughter is Sadie. So. But I won't prejudge.
Wish I could say we planned
I won't
that.
prejudge. Has no impact on my vote.
Councilman Maniscalco.
I think it's a very exciting project. I've always said if I win the lottery, I'd buy a cigar factory and make it my mansion.
There you
But
go.
I'm not going to win the well. But you've mentioned, regarding the parking waivers and whatnot, and
Yes.
this has, came up in the previous thing. Staff found it consistent if it wasn't for the parking waiver and whatnot. You are constricted because it's a historic property. Back in the day, the cigar workers walked from home. They lived in the area. So
Exactly.
parking and parking lots, you showed that photograph, and I think there was one car on the road.
Right.
And of course, we didn't have automobile ownership like that. It's a specialty hotel for a specialty client, a business traveler, whatever it is. They are gonna Uber. They may rent a car, but you're not gonna fill up all those parking spaces because generally in a hotel, the ratios aren't like that. I'm glad to see somebody investing in a historic property that has sat vacant for so long. You see how deteriorated it is inside. It'll be demolition by neglect because before you know it, these cigar factories, although they're made of brick and heavy materials, you can't fight Mother Nature, and you can't fight the tropical climates and the humidity and the lack of air conditioning and whatnot. So what you guys are doing and the investment that is being made, it's a unique product. Look at Le Meridian down the street, how that's a boutique hotel, and it's a beautiful hotel. And if you had to build something like that today, look at all that marble, look at all that in Le Meridian, but look at what you showed here in the lobby, that
Exactly.
mosaic tile, everything else. How could that be profitable and affordable? And who would build it? Where do you find that kind of skilled labor in today's world? So this is very exciting. I'm not testifying, whatever, I'm just giving my opinion. That historic area in West Tampa is very important to the community, and the cigar factories are the castles, of what I like to say of the neighborhood. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Citro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I applaud you for saving an historic building, but I just have to ask, you're not planning on painting this building, are you?
No, sir. Although I will admit, and as I told Mr. Beal and his staff, I think at our first meeting, when I first sat down with my client, we were talking about the project, he said, so we can just go ahead and stucco this exterior, right? And I said, no. No, it is going to be repointed. We've had a fairly lengthy discussion a couple weeks ago about restoration of the brick, about maintaining some of the areas that were painted that probably shouldn't have been painted, but years and years and years ago, and just keeping that character and feel of the historic nature of the building. So, but to answer your question, no.
You have just made most of West Tampa happy. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And with public comment, anyone here to publicly comment on this item? Okay. We have a motion to close by Councilman Dingfelder, second by Councilman Scalco. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Councilman Carlson, I think it's your turn if you're comfortable reading this one, sir.
Sure. File number REZ 1997. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. Ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1104, 1106, and 1202 North Howard Avenue, 2306, 2321, and 2323 West Nassau Street, and 2311 and 2315 West Gray Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 for from zoning district classification, PD plan development, was it Z07-63, and CI commercial intensive to PD plan development hotel and CI commercial intensive, providing effective date.
We have a motion by Councilman Carlson, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any in favor? Okay. Okay.
Motion carried with Miranda abstaining. Second reading adoption will be held on February 6, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, motions, Councilman Dingfelder, or anything, sir?
Yes, sir. A couple of items. I'm looking for a staff report from transportation next Thursday, and I usually give them more time, but in this case, there's some urgency. As related, I got an email from a constituent on South DeSoto in Hyde Park, and she said the city is taking down Laurel Oaks up and down the street as part of our repaving efforts, and they're old oak trees. So I'll ask transportation staff to come next Thursday and give us a report on that. I've also reported this to the mayor and chief of staff already to try and put a stop to it. But
Thank you, sir. And Councilman Citro, you wanted to add to that?
Yes, Councilman Dingfelder, if I can also ask to add when they are planning on having the speed humps and speed limit signs replaced on Oklahoma in between Del Mabry and West Shore.
you want to do that separately? It
Well,
sounds like-
while they're here, shouldn't
Yeah.
take more than.
I just was thinking a different subject.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be cleaner.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, seconded by Councilman Carlson. All in favor? Any opposed?
My next one relates to an item that came up a little while ago, which is to, unless we've already done this, which is possible, but ask for a staff report in person to address the parking code, specifically in urban areas near downtown. We keep hearing testimony, we keep getting waiver requests talking about Ubers and this and that. And frankly, it makes a lot of sense, and maybe our code is out of date. I don't know if we already have a report coming in on that.
I wonder, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have a recollection of it being discussed by Ms. Coyle, and I don't know whether it's in the cycle or not, but I believe there was a discussion. I don't have a specific recollection as to when that was.
You want to research and I'll defer this one?
If you can defer it for a week, is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
That'll be fine.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
All right, so I'll defer that one. And the last one came up in rezoning 19-92, which is now over. But specifically, I would like our senior staff, perhaps real estate staff, to investigate the possibility of the city purchasing the 80-foot CSX corridor that we saw the flyer come up for sale, 3.71 acres of corridor. And as we all know, that corridor can be extremely valuable to our community and is irreplaceable in terms of, the future for greenway trails, mass transit, et cetera. So I'd like to ask staff and maybe real estate staff to explore the possibility of the city participating or purchasing that 80-foot CSX corridor that is made reference to in file REZ 19-92 on the flyer.
Second.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to raise a concern in that this is coming back for a second reading, and it's relative to an objection raised by the seller.
CSX?
Yes, and.
All right, I'll defer this one too. I hear your point. Well taken.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll bring that one back in a few weeks or whatever.
Anything else, sir?
Or I'd recommend that you all put it out of your mind for consideration until such time as this matter is fully resolved. Thank you.
So noted. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to have the administration appear with a report on the outsourcing of any architectural RFPs for city projects outsourced to private businesses with a reference to cost of this versus city staff. I'd like to have this presented at a regular session of City Council on 2/26/20.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Good, second by Councilman Scott. All in favor? Any opposed?
What was the date again, sir? I'm sorry.
2-6.
2/6, thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
2/6.
Make a motion that we go to bed.
Second. Nothing, sir? Okay, Councilman Citro.
Councilman Dingfelder, when was that date that you had requested for transportation to be here?
At our next meeting next Thursday.
Well, may I just?
Do we have a meeting next Thursday?
Yes, you do. And the subject again was?
That was the tree cutting that's occurring on South DeSoto, and it's urgent.
That's urgent, okay.
Yeah.
Because the issue, and I just, I raised this earlier on another issue privately with a council member, is that the way it's structured with a one-week motion, there are times that staff will not get that motion in the action agenda till Monday or Tuesday. So that does not necessarily.
They're already investigating it.
Okay, that would be fine, thank you, and that's fine. So I just be aware, please.
Yeah.
And as long as they're gonna be here, that'll be fine.
Yeah, I got the same notices and notified them also, so it'll be good to bring it back up.
That date?
And that date would be fine with me. I would like to make a motion. They also give a time estimate on when the speed humps and the speed limit signs will be replaced on Oklahoma.
Second.
Between Dale Mabry and Manhattan.
We have a motion by Councilman Citro, seconded by Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor? Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
Just a couple more things briefly, ladies and gentlemen.
Just to clarify, was there a date for that? That's also next week?
Next week.
Separate staff?
While they're here.
A separate,
But a
unnumbered
separate-
item with the same staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please and thank you. Transportation, yes. Let's remember this Saturday is the Children's Parade, and we have a campaign, Bead-Free Bay. Some people may be appealing in the water and you want to throw beads to them. We're asking that you not do that. It hurts our fragile ecosystem. So let's save the beads for people that are on the land. I also want to send out kudos to solid waste, because I know that after the Children's Parade, within 6 hours, they will have Bayshore clean and operating to and from downtown Tampa. Thank you, Solid Waste. Nothing left.
Yes, sir.
from me.
Councilman.
I have a few, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion, make a presentation.
And I'm sorry, sir, if you could turn on, or speak in, there you go.
To commendation to Rebecca Kurt, Senior Assistant City Attorney, who's leaving the City Attorney's Office on February 7th, 2020. I would like to make this commendation at our regular City Council meeting on February 6th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor? Any opposed?
Number two, Mr. Chairman, at the request of the Hillsborough County Planning Commission, I would like to make a motion to set a plan amendment adoption for hearing TA/CPA 19-17 and TA/CPA 20-20, and a plan amendment transmittal for hearing TA/CPA 1918 A-G and TA/CPA 1921 for the evening meeting of March 26, 2020 at 5:01 p.m.
I've heard of that.
Could you repeat that? I didn't get
Yes,
that.
TA.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor? Any opposed?
Also, at the request of the Hillsborough County Planning Commission, I would like to make a motion to set a plan amendment hearing for TA/CPA 19-19 on the evening of March 12, 2020 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I won't be making a motion until we understand what's happening. There's over 100 cities in the United States, Chicago and New York, I think is one of them, two of them, that have cameras like we do in red lights, but that get speeders instead of red lights, people who are speeding, and it cuts down, let the police officers do something that they need to do, that's investigate other things that they're up to their neck in. And I'm not making a motion to that now, I just want you to know where we're coming from, and then next week or so after we understand what it is, I'll maybe make a motion. I'm going to talk to the police department and the administration on it.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Carlson, anything, sir?
Yeah, sorry to hold us up for a couple extra minutes. On January 23rd, I'm supposed to give a follow-up to the Tampa scorecard, and I'd like to move that to March 19th so that I can do it in coordination with the new head of economic development. So I'd like to make a motion to move my update from January 23rd to March 19th.
We have a motion by Councilman Carlson, a second by Councilman Niscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second one, a little bit bigger. You all remember when we had the big discussion about the EDC? Sorry to hit you all with this that night, but one of the things that happened was that the intern that we had figured out that there was an error in the way the EDC reported their information. They said just in one section, they said that there were 100 jobs, $150,000 each. And when we asked the question, because that looked high, they said it was actually $75,000 each. So that was a $7.5 million error out of about $90 million that they claimed in ROI that year. We have on March 5th, Carol Post is going to be giving a report on the ROI of the EDC, but we don't know that all the numbers that they presented were correct. And so I'd like to make a motion that we ask them to just do a review of their own numbers and present back. I'll read the motion. I'd like to make a motion that the Tampa Bay EDC review its reports to the city over the past 5 years to find and correct any errors and to submit a written report to the city before February 16th that will include the correct data along with a report on what changed and why.
So if I may, you want the EDC to do a report on the last 5 years?
Just to review to review their report. They've submitted reports, I think, monthly to the city over the last 5 years, and the city council intern in 1 hour found a $7.5 million error. And so my concern is that if the new head of economic development is reporting on the ROI, we don't know for sure whether the numbers are correct. Mm-hmm. And so all I'm asking the EDC to do is look at their own numbers and verify that they're correct. We know at least one of them is wrong, but verify their own numbers and just get back with us on what the real numbers are so that Ms. Post will have the correct numbers.
Have you inquired with them over whether or not this is a time period that they can accomplish? And I don't know what kind of if this is a large.
It's not. They're not that. I have not talked to them, but the numbers are not that complicated. I don't know if you all have seen the reports, but it's just a listing of the projects. They don't. It's the number of projects it's the projects with the number of employees times the anticipated salaries.
Anything else?
Any chance of tempering this to maybe 2 or 3 years? I'm familiar with those reports. It just seems like a fair amount of work to ask them about 5 years. I don't know.
If you'll second, I'll change it to 3 years.
I'll second it for 3 years.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's important for us to have. This is not a punitive thing. I just want to know what the correct numbers are. And if the numbers are all correct, other than that one, city staff have already verified that one was wrong. But if the other numbers are correct, then fine. At least we have the correct numbers that we can use to look at it.
Accuracy is important. You got my seconds for 3 years.
And
Thank you.
may I inquire, Mr. Chairman, how will this be communicated? This motion will be communicated to the EDC? Would it be through the administration or would it be through city council?
I would assume through Councilman Carlson's office.
Yeah, I'm happy to pass it on.
Okay. And, I'll vote for it. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with the EDC, number one. Number two, if they need more time, I would expect a professional courtesy to be given to them for that. I don't want them to come on in here and have to be said, where's this information, et cetera. They receive money from the city, so I think it's reasonable for some accountability in that regard. But I that if they need more time, that obviously they should be afforded that courtesy.
Yeah, the only reason I set that date is, well, it's a month from now, but also we're asking 2 weeks later for Ms. Post to come back with her report. So we'll just move that at the same time if they need.
Well, March.
It's March 5th.
So again, I'll as a professional courtesy to you, I'll do it so long as we have the professional courtesy to them. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The Louis Vera, Mr. Rogers standard.
And Mr. Chairman, this does not require an appearance on that date by the 16th?
No, they don't have to come in. It says a written report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Anyone else? By Councilman Carlson, second by Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
Yeah, the last thing is, half of us have the Bayshore area as a constituency. I think we should have some kind of workshop on Bayshore. I would, we would have a lot of people show up. And, there have been 3 plans over the last 20 years. One of them was about 5 years ago. Only part of the recommendations were implemented, but now a lot of people have moved into the area, and there's not consensus on what the plan should be. I imagine the city will go through some lengthy process, but the public is asking us to have some kind of workshop on that. And so if you all were so inclined, I would recommend that I'd like to make a motion. Well, let me ask you what you think first, and then I can make a motion.
I think it's a great idea because, with Bayshore and the speeding, the kids that were racing, that was a huge issue. And of course, the mother and the child died. Now with this other incident, Bayshore, people call it a park. It's the world's longest continuous sidewalk, on and on and on. But people don't feel safe there, even though that where the water is and the sidewalk is farther off the street. We've had multiple incidences where people are getting killed, and it shouldn't be like that. Should it be taken down to just 2 lanes? The northbound lane going into downtown completely closed off? Should it just be left like that? Leave the southbound lane open and make it 2-way, which would significantly change everything. Emergency services are going to have their opinion on getting to that area in a reasonable amount of time. The amount of cars that move through there all the time on a daily basis. But I know the administration, changed the speed limit, reduced it by 5 miles an hour. We have the flashing crosswalks for people to cross over, but it's still not enough. It should be pedestrian-centric, not car-centric, because we're still focused on moving the traffic, and we need to look at different options and ideas. So I think a workshop would be great because people are dying. It is a life and death situation.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, about 14, 15 years ago, we had another tragic accident. This was the motorcycle that hit the pedestrian, and Mayor Arroyo commissioned the Bayshore Task Force. Vicky Collier served on it as well as myself and others. I'd love to, and it was really comprehensive. I mean, we met for like 2 months, every other week, and had lots of different staff and the public and all. And then we came back with a report to the city and a report to council, and with recommendations, and some of which were implemented. And every time we do it, I think Bayshore gets a little bit better and a little bit safer. So I don't know if part of the motion might want to be to maybe we can kick it off with a workshop, but maybe urge the administration to go ahead and commission a full-blown task force to really take a big look at this.
Well, I understand it's insurance in South Tampa area, but there are other areas in the city as well that have speeding problems with deaths as well. So if you're talking about commissioning a task force, then there needs to be a universal task force for the whole city, not just for Bayshore. Now, unfortunately, bad behavior on the incident on last week created that problem. Not just being bad behavior of someone drinking and driving. So let's be clear. I know Bayshore has some issues, but someone was drinking and he made a bad error in judgment, and it wound up killing someone, and it's hurt his family and the family of the person that passed away. I can tell you, as a person who wrote speeding tickets, sit in areas and wrote with lasers, bad behavior is bad behavior. And I don't care how you try to change lanes, I don't care if you dropped it to 10 miles per hour. People still have bad behavior and speed. But I could support the motion, but if we're going to say a task force, I can support a task force, but not just merely for Bayshore, because I get calls all the time about 40th Street towards going to Bush Boulevard and other areas. So I think if you're going to do a task force, we do it for the whole city.
And by the way, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure if we haven't done it already, I'd like us to express our condolences to the Gage family.
Yep. Absolutely.
To that tragedy, a total freak thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Should I?
And Councilman Citron.
Councilman Goods, I agree with you. When you put somebody behind the wheel of a 3,000-pound vehicle who is intoxicated not only on alcohol, but marijuana, that vehicle turns into a weapon. Mm-hmm. And that weapon, throughout our country, has killed more people than handguns. And people don't realize that. I live on Bay Shore. Something needs to be done on Bay Shore. I will grant that. But I hear what you're saying, that the city needs to be looked at in all neighborhood streets. Yes, sir.
Anyone else? And sir, did you wish to?
Yeah, if you all want to combine those two, I'll make a combined motion, but and I don't know a date that we could do it. It's going to take at least an hour to do something like that. That's why I didn't pick a date. But I would like to make a motion that we hold a workshop on the issues in and around Bayshore Boulevard, and that we ask the administration to form a task force regarding speeding throughout the city.
I'll second that.
And let me say, if I may, I strongly support this. We do need to not just talk about the issues that Councilman Carlson has wisely put forward, but also let residents of Bayshore have a venue by which they can express their frustrations and their sentiments and their proposals, to all of us as their elected officials. I strongly do support that. I mean, you always talk about branding, think about the city of Tampa and branding, and Bayshore always comes on top of the list. Councilman Good's points on other areas of the city of Tampa is obviously well taken, and we did a workshop not long ago on Bush Boulevard, where I hope we see some real progress in that regard. But Bayshore certainly is worthy of our attention. It goes without saying, and letting folks again express their frustrations.
Is there a date that you, Mr. Chair, is there a date you think we have time to do this?
Let me look at where's my Mr. Chair? I should have built. Anybody got a calendar?
Yeah.
We have workshops February 27th, March 26th, and April 23rd.
How does February 27th look, Mr. Shelby? A lot of them?
You have two staff reports, you have a commendation, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 workshops.
Oh boy! What are the workshops?
One is to discuss the issues of housing and contracting, the city's hiring process, and anything regarding to private sector housing practices. The second one is to discuss human trafficking with regard to the Super Bowl. The third one is Catherine Coyle to explain the current tree ordinance with a report on the number of trees that have been.
How's March 26th?
March 26th.
Are you okay with going to March, Councilman Carlson? Or do you want to try to fit it in February?
I think if we schedule it, then the longer we put it out, the more time it will give the public to organize. Anyway.
Okay, good. Okay, just making sure.
March
what does March look like?
Has get a police officer of the month. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 workshops. Let's see.
April 23rd has nothing.
April 23rd.
You want to do April 23rd first in line?
It's Sulphur Springs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second in line, I guess.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
It's not ideal. I mean, but
10 a.m. for Sulphur Springs.
It gives us time. I think we need to leave at least an hour for public input on that.
May I suggest that that's set for the Sulphur Springs is set for 9 o'clock. Perhaps we set it for 10 o'clock, and council might want to consider just limiting the subject matters that day, because those are going to be too
Sure.
significant.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And who's, Councilman, we have a motion by Councilman Carlson, second by Councilman Maniscalco. Was it Dingfelder? We'll give it to Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything
All right,
else?
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, and just very briefly, if I may, we were contacted by the Florida League of Cities, and we motion they want to honor our friend and colleague Charlie Miranda. Yeah, and I motion for representative for the Florida League of Cities to honor the wonderful service of our friend and colleague Charlie Miranda at the regular session of council on February 6th.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a motion from Chairman Vieira with a second from?
Me, thank you.
Okay.
I'll second.
Councilman Citro, all in favor?
Aye.
And then, secondly, a commendation for the City of Tampa's Women History Committee to be presented on February 20th at the regular council meeting. And before that, if I may, one thing I was thinking of, instead of, and I'm just thinking out here, is I would love to invite all of our colleagues who have served on city council who are women that day, maybe to present that. Councilwoman Capine, Councilwoman Monteleone, Mulhern, Miller, et cetera. I think that would be great.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so, so I'm going to inquire with my aide who's watching this now, if you don't mind reaching out, we'll work, and anyone else, for Linda Salsena, among others. Yep.
What is the award?
Oh, this is for the City of Tampa Women's History Committee. Just anyone who would like to be present that day to present it, if they wish to come, we'd love to have them.
We have a motion from.
Everybody cool with that?
That's good. Second.
Motion from Chairman Vieira with a second from Councilman Citro with great suggestions to invite all the others. All in favor?
Aye.
And then in closing, Reverend King parade, what, this Monday? And I hope to see everyone there.
Yep.
There you go. Motion for,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Have a good one. Oh, he did it and he did it. There you go.
And you're adjourned.
Yes, sir. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
The guy in the hat hit the other guy in the hat.